Hey, everybody, this is Perch. And before we get into the mail and the other stuff that we're going to talk about, a slight weird little plug. There's a program that I've supported for years. It's called Wreaths Across America, and that's wreaths like in holiday wreath with a W, Wreaths Across America. And the basic premise here is that they purchase kind of in bulk wreaths, and then they put them on the gravestones of fallen soldiers, people who died in defense of the country. And this is not something they necessarily promote, but there's usually off a little bit of a tidying up of the grave site and other things, just keeps it, clean and respectful. But at the, holiday season we have here, pretty cool, pretty good thing. A lot of families go to visit the gravestone of, past loved ones. And this is a pretty reasonable, good charity. A lot of, as you may have heard from me in the past, I have a lot of skepticism around charities that have heavy amounts of administrative costs where you're basically paying for an office staff and other things, and very little of your donations go to people. In this case, your donations are going to a moment. It's going to helping to keep these gravestones, in good shape with high respect for the people who fell. And does not have the administrative costs. But anyway, major cities across the country, major places are doing this. So it's also, if you have some local pride, it can help your local area. But anyway, if you're thinking of something the holiday season, very, very little money. You can give a lot, you can give a very little. But it's something that I think is a pretty worthwhile thing in general. And keep in mind, it's the holiday season, and this tends to be a time where you would think that, there's more of that kind of charity and giving, but there's usually less as people are, fighting with increased heating costs and just their own home bills. And so places that do a lot of good, like a soup kitchen or a local shelter for people is often find themselves struggling. One of the big myths as well is that they do not, it's a cash only thing. It's not. You can donate time, which is something they often desperately need, or food, or blankets, or if you're like me, you got a house full of crap that your kids have collected over the years, and even older toys, older blankets, clothes, all that kind of stuff can go a long way. So anyway, think about those people, the less fortunate people this holiday season, if you have a chance. And thank you for putting up that plug. So over to the email and comics. A thought about the multiple Spider-Man. We talk about Spider-Man, Batman, etc. in these books. And generally what happens here is that a character lands and gets popular. The company sees the sales, and, what do? You split it off, and you have a spin-off book, and you have another spin-off book. And before you know it, you've got a collection of Bat books that start to eat at the core, meaning, it starts off, you can sustain a couple of Bat books, but then when you have 12, suddenly all the volume starts falling for everything because people just can't do it. And then the company, in an attempt to salvage those sales of all the spinoffs they created, start doing crossovers where you have to buy them all in order to get the whole story. And this tends to really annoy a lot of comic customers, and it's a vicious cycle. But anyway, let's see what this mail says. It says, "Howdy, Perch. Don't you find it odd that there are 5 or so different X-Men books? I would find it odd if there are 5 or so X-Men books. There are currently 12. Same with Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman. I get the floppies are traditional, pull-lists, and the like, but at the same time, we aren't in the 90s where we had floppies going on for 100-plus issues like Spider-Girl. How about instead of 10 Spider-Man books at 21 pages each, you just have one Spider-Man book with 5 stories for, let's say, 120 pages. In that single book, you have Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Venom, and whatever the top 2 floppies of Spider-Man area of the Marvel Universe are. I know this sounds like Shonen Jump, but here's the difference. It does sound like Shonen Jump, actually. Shonen Jump has unique universes for each story. Yes. However, this approach has been used for other designs. Like it's not just Shonen Jump that exists. There are others, particularly if you go back further in time. But yeah, these Spider-Man books are all in the same area in the Marvel Universe, New York, and the spinoffs of him at the end of the day. This also makes it easier to do events with characters all in just one book. Sure, the price would be higher, but considering the flood-the-shelf strategy isn't working, maybe it would be better this way. Just imagine it. Week 1, you have the Batman book, which has Batman, Nightwing, Catwoman, and 2 one-shots in Gotham. Week 2, the Superman book with Kal-El, John Kent, etc. Week 3, you have the Wonder Woman book with Diane in the front and 4 Amazon stories in the back. They would struggle to find those Amazon stories. In the months, you have the Justice League book with Teen Titans, World's Finest, or whatever miscellaneous teams you want in the spotlight. Every week of every month, you have just one big book form a tentpole that gets people into comic book shops. Not only that, use the extra story space for characters who can't support their own books. Higher cost, yes. I was talking to a friend about, Orion as a character who has a lot of potential to really do something with. And then, I'm like, you should also, this would be a great kind of buddy sci-fi epic kind of story. Partner him up with Lobo and just send the two loose, give them 18 issues, do something cool. That'd be pretty. There's a lot of these lesser known characters that can't support their own books, but would definitely benefit from something like this. Anyway, let's conclude off the mail. It says, higher cost, yes, but I think it's better in the current situation. I know they tried something similar with Walmart a while back, but I think there was an error in execution there. There are quite a few. Thank you for your time. I think it can't be an or. It needs to be an and. And I think, the way to do this is probably, it's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. But I think what needs to happen is you keep publishing the floppies, and then you go ahead and you do this as well. And you basically use these designs. You definitely put them in the comic shops. You also put them in the bigger box stores. And it allows you a chance to kind of see if your market is going to migrate. It may or may not. It also, from a profit perspective, would probably hurt the comic publishers in the short term, unless they could get the volumes up. And so the example is, in a design like this, you really couldn't go for too much higher than $10 is the challenge. Now, you could do it on cheaper paper, and you can do other things to get your margins higher. But if you're talking, say, 5 or 6 titles at $5 a piece, Marvel's moving everything to this $4.99 price point, you're talking about $30. And $30 would never hold it just wouldn't. People would not pay $30 for 5 issues in one kind of bound book. They may pay 10, they might pay 12, but that's really kind of as far as it goes. So that's a pretty big gap you have to make up. So what I think you should do is keep publishing the floppies like you are. Maybe even, and I can't believe I'm saying this, lean in harder to the variants and all that other kind of collectability crap, and then use cheaper paper. You don't need to go all the way back to newsprint, but basically something that's the equivalent, much cheaper paper. And, you put out these books, cheaper coloring, all the rest, in the printing process, not the actual coloring. And you sell them for $12, and you offer them to the comic shops. If people want to consume that way, great. The challenge you would have a little bit is then your schedule would warp, because you'd have, unless you realigned what comics are coming out that week, so you put all your Superman books and floppies out and the big Zine out, or your Zine is going to have books that were, available like 4 weeks ago. And again, maybe from a collectability standpoint, that works for you. You got people who are so excited about a story. I can't quite see that happening, but so excited about a story, they go into the comic shop, buy it, and then buy the collected version 3 weeks later with the other stuff and one new story, or one story that came out that week. I don't know. There's some logistic things to work out. It's worth a try. I just don't think you could replace the current system with this. I definitely think there are people who would buy it. And again, if you went cheaper, it could be something where, you'd have to be a little thoughtful about what's going into it. But, parents are more likely to, drop $12 and give their kids a book that doesn't look like they have to bag it, board it, protect it, and everything else, something that could be a little bit more disposable in this bigger kind of, bigger floppy Zine, like what Shonen Jump, that kind of quality. It's worth a shot. I like that. I like the idea. I think that it's interesting. I think, you've got to figure out how to solve distribution. You got to figure out how to, offer books in different ways. I definitely think, maybe one thing you could do is you have kind of 4 comics that are also being published as floppies. If you think about, all right, so now I'll get into the details a little bit. You think about a Superman book. Okay, you got 4 Superman titles or Superman family titles. they're coming out once a week. So 4 titles, 4 weeks. On the 4th week, you publish the design, which means it's going to have stories that came out, 3, 2, and 1 week ago, plus one that came out the same week. And you have a story that maybe you don't publish in the floppy. You have another kind of backup or short story or something where it is, it's one of these characters like you mentioned that can't carry a regular title. I think these are, there's something that could be done there that it's worth trying. I think you could step in and try it at a small scale without putting too much money out. So it'd be a relatively safe bet that you could do. But, a little hard to say. Anyway, thank you very much for the idea. I'm curious what people think. Let us know in the comments. There's another mail I'm going to read here pretty soon. People are increasingly pointing out that the comments are crap in the videos. They're calling you out. So let me know what you think of this idea in your usual thoughtful way. And thanks for listening.